Hi guys, welcome to another video on my channel. In this video, I wanted to chat a bit about my knitting plans for spring and summer. But first, I wanted to take a really quick moment and just say thank you. I surpassed 100 subscribers, and at this moment it is like 150. It blows my mind that even one person is interested in listening to me talk, let alone 150. So I'm super grateful for you guys. Thank you for tagging along. And let's get into the fun of the video. So I am a knitter. I'm a baby knitter. I learned how to knit like maybe 8 years ago now and just never took it up, never kept with it. So I had like the basic skills on how to knit and purl, but beyond that, didn't really have any skills. But it always appealed to me for the aspect of making garments, which I love garments and I love very specific types of garments. And it always appealed to me to make things for myself. Knitting itself also has been a really great way for me to keep my mind busy, to keep my hands busy. As a hobby, it's just been like super grounding to practice for me. So I found that I like to have one project going at all times because there's downtime in my life. I commute on a train. I have lunch breaks, and I really like to be knitting in those down times. So in order to keep my sanity, I want to just keep the ball rolling. And so I thought that I'd chat a little bit about what I'm planning to knit in the spring and summer season this year. My current knit project is this hood. It's called the Nomad Hood. I like to say that this project is like way more complicated than it has any right being. They did warn me though. They said that it was an advanced pattern, and I sort of didn't even realize that until I started knitting it, because it is a deceptively simple design. I do really like it. I am planning on doing a review of this project. I think I'm going to film it as like a YouTube short once I finish it. So as of right now, I just have the ribbing on the neck to finish up, and there is a bit of ribbing at the opening of the hood. So I'm going to finish this project hopefully in the next week or two. So if you're interested in a review of that, please keep an eye out. So let's get into the projects that I want to do this summer. These are all ideas on things that I want to knit. I don't necessarily know how realistic it is to see if I actually knit all of these, but these are all the projects that are like on my radar and things that I want to get to eventually. So anyway, let's get into it. The first top that I have my eye on is the Cutie Tee. I do think that this style went viral recently. I feel like I've seen it on like TikTok and all over Pinterest, but I'm still interested in it particularly because I think that the design itself really lends itself to like medieval-esque, medieval-inspired design, which is something that I've really been into lately, which if you've seen my winter inspirations video, you know that specifically medieval-inspired knitwear is something that I've been really interested in lately. So the fact that this has little qualities that make it medieval-esque really appeals to me. So I wanted to try it out. It seems like it would work up fairly quickly because the yarn is quite thick. So that's a pattern that is definitely on my radar. Another top is this asymmetrical top that I came across on Pinterest. I tried to source where the design came from because I was super interested in purchasing the pattern to make it. But upon further research, I found that the studio or the designer that created it, it was like a one-off, one of a kind, didn't write down the pattern, or at least if she didn't put it up for sale. So unfortunately, it is not something that is super accessible to me at this moment. It does seem like a pretty straightforward design. However, I don't know if I'm super confident in my knitting abilities to go off and attempt to DIY that myself, at least not yet. But I did find another pattern of an asymmetrical top, and that's the Live top. And I thought that it was an interesting style of asymmetrical hem top that could be a suitable substitute for this other one that I unfortunately can't have. It does have some slight differences in the design. There is a slash on the side with the longer length on it. And I'm not fully sure how I feel about that stylistic choice, but I am interested in the overall design of the top, and I can see the practicality of having a slit on that side so that you can access your pocket. So I've got that one on my radar. I'm still searching. I'm still looking for asymmetrical hem tops. So if you've got any recommendations, let me know. For the next project, I would like to make a poncho. I've had ponchos on the brain for a while now, at least for the last like 6 months to a year. And while I was able to thrift one recently that I love, it is a cold weather adjacent garment. It's a thicker knit, it's a cable knit. It's not something that I would really pull out, except maybe in like early spring or into the fall. So I'd be particularly interested in maybe creating a spring summer poncho. There's a specific one that I've been seeing like listings of all over resale websites when I've been looking up ponchos. I believe it is like a 90s, early 2000s brand. Maybe you guys have come across it out and about, but it's a very recognizable crochet with sequins on it, and a really nice, like loose, open design, something that can be worn in hot weather. So I am interested in either finding a listing for one that is like under $50, but I'm thinking I would either purchase one of those or maybe bust out my crochet hooks. I was originally a crocheter before I became a knitter. And so maybe it's time to dust off my hooks and make one of these little ponchos. But depending on the time that I have and the different patterns that I can find, because I haven't been able to find a pattern that replicates that like quintessential 2000s design. So if I can't find something that's not really in the style that I want, then maybe I'll just buy one. But that is something that I've been keeping an eye on. The next project is another top I have been looking at. It's called the Sunny Tee. It's like a very simple little tee design, and I hope that it would be easy enough to work up. I do love personally a little micro tee moment. I do strictly wear high-waisted silhouette. That is like a building block of my style. And so micro tees or like cropped tees really do cut at the perfect spot to kind of just be tucked into the front of my high-waisted pants. So a little cropped tee moment could be perfect, and something simple to whip up. This tee itself, I believe, is worked in merino. So I'm not sure whether I would want to work in a merino wool for the spring summer season or not. I don't really see myself getting much wear out of a micro tee in the fall or the winter, because I would die of hypothermia. So maybe I might consider switching out that fiber to like a linen, a cotton blend or something like that, or maybe a silk. Another top I've been looking at is this bocce shirt. This is a really unique design. I haven't found really anything like it. I've really been drawn to it because of that. I also love button-up collared shirts. I'm wearing one right now. It is another signature silhouette, another signature piece that I just love to wear. I love to own. I love to style with. So I love the idea of knitting my own. And so this pattern really called to me. And I just thought that it was a really beautiful design. So that's something else that I'm considering making. And the last of the tops that I want to talk about, because I know I've mentioned a lot of tops, I have faith. I have faith that I can complete quite a few projects this summer, mainly because I believe, maybe this is naively, but I believe that since the garments themselves are less surface area to knit because you're making a tank, you're making a tee, it's going to be just smaller overall than a sweater. I know it depends on yarn thickness and needle size and things like that, but I personally think I'm a fairly prolific knitter. So just personally, I feel like I would be able to tackle quite a few tops, but we'll see how idealized that plan is once the summer starts rolling around and I see how these projects work up. So yes, the last top that I'm interested in is called the Mount Hoodie vest. Again, going back to my winter inspirations video, vests are something that I mentioned as something that I want to incorporate more into my wardrobe. I want to try layering with them. So I really love this Mount Hoodie vest. I love that it kind of looks like activewear. And like the bocce shirt, it's unlike any other vest pattern that I found on Ravelry. So I've done like very thorough searches of vests because God, once you start looking at like vests or sweaters or one like grouping of items, they tend to start to like look the same. And then it's like, God, I don't know. Do I want the one that's like slightly longer or has a slightly bigger rib or, and then you get a little bit too in the weeds. But with this pattern, it's super unique. I like that it seems like something that you can just throw on and wear and not have to think twice about it. And of course, who doesn't love a front central pocket? So that is the tops or the garments that I'm interested in making this summer. But I think that I would also like to try making a few accessories for the winter. And this could be like projects that I start in the late summer, early fall, but things that would work up quickly or at least more quickly than a sweater might, but would sort of kickstart going into the fall with my fall winter knitting in preparation of that. In that vein, I'm looking at a lot of different styles of like accessory, different types of cowls and hoods and things that can like really keep me warm in the winter. I get super, super cold in the winter to the level where it like I can't function. And so I really need to swath myself in wool fabrics and warm things. So I've been looking at particularly the November neck is one that I would really like to make. I think it's pretty unique in its style. I like that it can be worn over outerwear and it is pretty stylish, but would definitely also keep you warm. I think the buttons on the side are a really nice touch to it as well. And I think the style of it can either lean vintage or modern, depending on how you lean into it. So I really like that as well. Another fall winter accessory that I'm looking at is the Sunday shrug. I like that it's a nice shrug. It looks, just from the photos, it looks like it could wrap me up and keep me warm. And that's always a huge draw for me. I like that it's a worsted yarn knit together with a mohair yarn for the main color, at least. I'm interested in also playing around with color with that pattern, particularly because it's the two strands together. There are some knitters online who are doing some really interesting things by creating these complementary color combinations that just really appeal to me. And I've always loved the halo effect that mohair yarn gives. I'm really interested in trying something like that out, and I thought that a shrug would be low stakes to try something like that out on. And I've just been looking at the Knitting for Olive website, and they have a ton of beautiful colorways of like lace mohair. I'm interested in trying something different out. Maybe like combining two different colors that you wouldn't necessarily think of right off the bat. And I think a shrug is super low stakes to try that out on because, again, you won't be using as much yarn. It's not as long of a project, and it's a way to kind of try out these color combinations to see. For me to just test out how confident I am in my color combination ability, because I usually do, at least so far in my knitting career, I've stuck with mostly knitting in the color that the designer knits in, just because I guess I am drawn to the color of it. That's part of what makes you want to select a pattern, I think. So far, I've been really reserved in my color usage, which is fine because that's also how my style is more muted, reserved tones. But I also like to sprinkle in some fun, interesting colors here or there. So I think that this is really ripe for experimentation in that. And that's it. That's my plans for knitting for the next 2 seasons. Again, I'm not sure how realistic a list it is, but I'll be sure to report back and let you know what I was able to manage to get done. So please consider sticking around if you're interested in getting updates on my summer knitting, or if you're just interested in fashion content in general. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.